What's going on, fight fans? It's the Vulture here with Cage Conversations, and today we have a very special guest and former LFA Flyweight champion and UFC veteran, Victor El Magnifico Altamirano.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Victor over here. Hope everybody's doing well. How you doing?
Not too bad, enjoying a Friday, getting ready for the weekend, getting ready to watch these fights tomorrow night, and more importantly, getting ready to meet you and let the fight fans know about you if they don't already.
Oh, well, I'm right here. I'm Victor Altamirano, former LFA champion, former UFC fighter, um, winner of Fighter of the Night in Utah with Edwards versus Usman. That was a pretty wild night. Do you remember that one?
Very vaguely, but I'm sure you can refresh my memory on it.
Yeah, that was when Usman was winning all rounds, and right at the very end, when there was like a minute left, Edwards dropped him with a head kick.
That's right, that's right. That's where the boom headshot came in. I do remember that.
Yeah,
All
yeah, that
right.
was in Utah, Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I do remember that night. I was actually watching that one, and I was with my cousin, and she's like, why do people watch these fights? Why do they bet on them? Like if somebody's winning the whole fight, don't they end up just winning it?" I was like, "No, because you never know what can
Yeah.
happen." And sure enough, in that last minute, he landed that head kick. I went wild. I looked at it, I was like, "This is why we don't bet. This is why we don't say, oh, you're gonna win the fight if you win the entire first four rounds, because anything could happen at any given time."
Did you had any predictions for that particular fight?
I really thought Usman was going to take it. I didn't think Edwards was going to have enough wrestling defense to get that fight in his favor, and I was going right
Yeah.
up until Usman just kind of got sloppy with it. Got a little. He was playing with his food, in my opinion. And, he got finished.
Yeah.
One of those live and learns kind of situations for him.
This happens pretty often. It happened to Sean O'Malley, with Marab. It happens often with many fighters in all combat sports. And when I see that happening, I think of that Batman quote, The Dark Knight. Remember the one with Bane, The
Yeah,
Dark Knight Rises? And he tells him, "Victory has defeated you," because they're always winning.
yeah,
They go untested for so long, they forget what got them there. And when they have a fight that it's tough, when they have a fight with somebody that is fresh of fighting to get to fight them after not having to try so hard, they forget. And then they meet somebody who's just got out of the trenches and he's ready to fight again. And it's not because they're more technical, it's purely because they got comfortable winning.
yeah. So with that whole inspiration thing that you mentioned, kind of give us a little idea of what inspired you to pursue this whole fighting career that you've got going.
Well, I've always loved martial arts. I'm sure because I grew up in the 90s. I don't know when you grew up exactly, but you remember watching kids. There wasn't, my parents were not very um, cautious of the rating of movies. So I would watch Bloodsport, Kiss of the Dragon, or Enter the Dragon, Kiss of the Dragons with Jet Li, Enter
Yeah.
the Dragons with Bruce Lee. I would watch all these movies with Van Damme, Seagal, Bruce Lee, Jet Li. And they're not movies that I would let my children watch right now, but when I was a child, they didn't care. So I thought, man, this is so cool. I wanna learn how to fight like that. I want to move my body like that. I want to be able to beat someone up whenever I'm put in danger and they think I don't know anything. And then boom, I win. So I started to know about it. I started to educate myself on what is it? It's martial arts. You learn Kung Fu, you learn karate, you learn Taekwondo. And then these are the reasons why these people are able to fight. It's not because they were any bigger or stronger, but because they were trained to do that. And so I thought, oh, well, I want to learn. I want to learn to do that. And that's what inspired me to even begin martial arts, is because I really enjoyed watching people perhaps stand up for themselves or assert justice. Those movies are a lot about avenging someone who wronged them, and they weren't expected to do it, but they did it because they worked hard, they trained and did it. And that's what got me into martial arts. I started training when I was 6. Then I got a little injury. I quit and I started it again when I was 12. And then I just kept doing it. It was just such a relief to be at the gym, such a great ambience to do it. Everybody was great. Everybody was happy. The attitude was always really great amongst my peers. My instructor was also very, very wise, very smart. It was very strict at times, but at the times when you're a kid, you need structure the most, I believe, and that really helped me to find myself in a place to how do I get better? How do I get better at school? How do I get better at making friends? How do I get better at anything? It really taught me how to get better at things in general. And the way is just practice. You can't be good at something you don't practice. And to this day, that's something that I firmly believe in. You cannot be good at something you don't practice, period.
Yeah.
And I just did it as a teenager. It kept me out of trouble. I never really was inside, I never really was tempted by trouble, maybe because I was at the gym all the time, but I never got in trouble. I always made good grades. I passed the class. I graduated, yada, yada, yada. I went to college. I started jujitsu. And because I already had a Taekwondo striking background, I competed almost immediately in a Muay Thai tournament. I went to the semifinals. I lost because of the clinch. And then I thought, oh, this is fun. I want to keep doing it. I want to keep trying it. I want to keep training. I know there's so much more for me to learn, especially the grappling. And I was at the gym all the time. We had classes in the morning and in the evening. And if I didn't work that day, I was there on all the classes, the jiu-jitsu, the Muay Thai, no gi, and I got to be taught by many instructors because not always the same instructor teaches all the classes. So I was lucky and blessed to have all these different perspectives and disciplines to to help me with my jiu-jitsu and my striking. As you know, even though it's the same discipline, different instructors have a different philosophy behind it. And I think it's very important that you make sure you keep variety in that because different people will teach you differently and some things will click differently. And so that's what I did, and that's what really helped me. And then we began a fight team. We had this group of people who wanted to fight. My coach at the time got them fights. They fought, and because I was at the gym all the time, I would help them prepare for their fight camps. I would be there every time. I would spar with them. I would grapple with them. I wouldn't do the wake up with them because who would want to do that? but after a few times, they said, "Hey, why don't you fight? You're here all the time. You're doing everything everybody else is doing. You're just not doing the reason to do it." And I thought, yeah, I mean, if I had a reason to do it, I would do it. But I'm already doing everything I would be doing. So let me just go ahead and do it. And they booked me a fight. I was the underdog. I was going against this guy who was pretty local, famous. People knew him in the scene. And I beat him by decision. I had no wrestling at the time. It was just volume of striking and some head kicks that I landed, and I won. So then I thought, okay, I won, and I still got so much more to learn. I can go far, and so I just kept fighting. I just kept fighting because at no point from the point in which I was 12 years old to that fight, at no point did I think one day I'm gonna make it to the UFC. That was never ever my dream. I just wanted to learn how to fight. I just wanted to be good at it. That was it. My goal was I just want to be good at fighting. And I just kept doing it and kept on being tested by fighting and went to amateur, went to pro, made a really good pro, won the LFA champion, got called to Dana White's contender series. And as fast as I'm telling you this, it happened because I was too busy just doing what I liked. I was just too busy grappling, too busy striking, too busy training, too busy cutting weight, too busy making sure that I was living my life outside the gym in a way that it would make it better when I would go to the gym. So I would sleep early, I would eat right, just because it just became my whole life. And if I wanted it to be good, everything outside of the gym had to align with it.
Yeah.
And then I made it to the contender series. I I won the fight. I got my contract, and we're here now.
Yeah. Yeah, so it seems like your inspiration came a lot from those, those famous actors, famous movie stars being on one of the biggest stages in Hollywood, getting their time shown, and you're like, wow, this is something I really want to do too. So with that, how does it feel for yourself finally be able to be in those shoes and be in one of the biggest stages of the MMA world?
It feels very wonderful. I'm very grateful. It feels a lot of I feel a lot of gratitude for that because there are many people out there who have those dreams and for circumstances that are out of their control don't even get to attempt to pursue those dreams. And I feel grateful that I was able to do that. I feel grateful for all these people that have been with me from the very beginning, from these people, my coaches, my teammates. It's just gratitude, just overall gratitude that I'm able to keep doing what I like doing and have had the career that I've had in the martial arts world for over 20 years.
Yeah, so there's a lot of similarities, between being a Hollywood actor and being, a professional fighter at these top leagues. But one thing in specific that I really kind of want to dive into with you was fight weeks. Everybody takes fight week differently. Everybody processes it. Some of them get jitters. Some of them are comfortable being in front of the camera. What about it for you was different, or what did you feel was something that you really enjoyed for your fight weeks?
One thing that I really enjoyed from a fight week was when I would be with my team, I would just hone in. There were no distractions. It was just myself and my cornerman. We would just be at the hotel talking about the fight, bushing about whatever, but we all had a task at hand. And it was just a week in which we would just drive all of our focus into this particular goal. And as an adult, you don't really get to do that. You may get an hour to a day in which you're like, oh, I'm going to focus just on this. But my favorite part of fight week was how much time I got to spend on focusing on this particular goal with my teammates. As I mentioned, this is pretty rare as an adult. You have so many things you focus on. You may get an hour or two to focus on this one particular task, and then you have to move on into one thing and the other. But fight week was a really wonderful week when it came to getting to know myself, getting to know my teammates, getting to know how important it is, getting to share the importance of the task at hand, and just honing in into this performance that we had to compose ourselves into. And I really enjoyed that. Another thing I really enjoyed about Fight Week was how we would just have like a little vacation. I didn't have a vacation, but my teammates, had a little vacation. We would get to go to cool places and I would just be cutting weight and it was enjoyable for me to watch them enjoy themselves where we were,
Yeah.
even though I wasn't able to partake in the food and whatnot.
It's kind of like a little thank you to them for all the hard work they've put in to get you where you are, and where you need to be. And then,
Most definitely.
yeah. So now with that, with your training camps, was there any time that you felt needed to make any last minute adjustments or anything you needed to tweak from your normal routine in order to get ready for any of your fights?
Yeah, that's I don't know about last minute, but there were a lots of hiccups, from amateur to pro, small injuries, big injuries, times in which you thought, man, should we call the promoter, tell him we're injured and we can't fight? Are we going to need to pull out? There are many times in which I fought and I was semi-injured, if not pretty injured, and I just had to do it. You just have to pull it off. Little adjustments here, last minute calls, like, hey, can you fight in 2 weeks? They're like, oh, I need to cut 20 pounds in 2 weeks. And you go ahead and do it. So that's not rare. That's something that happens pretty often for everybody, I think. And I think that is one of the things that weeds out the people who are willing to take it seriously. Because the promoters don't care. The promoters are trying to fill out the card. They have
Yeah.
to make money for the venue. And if they call somebody and they say, hey, you're finding article or you're finding, and then 2 weeks they call, they're like, look, I have a broken thumb. I don't think I can make it. That's a headache for the promoters. And they can replace you easily or maybe not. But the next time they have a fight, they're like, I don't know if I'll call this guy again. He may get injured again. He was willing to call up for a broken thumb or a bruised rib. But I have this other guy who's never called off and I don't know if he had or not injuries, but he's always made it. So from the perspective of a businessman, a promoter, I'm not a promoter, you can really tell it's like, okay, you just have to fight through things. If you should know your health, right? You know your body, you know what you can withstand, and you know when you should call it or not. But if you can, it is your career. You know, people are gonna depend on you to show up and show out. It's like a contractor. You call your plumber and then they call you last minute saying I can't make it because whatever reason. It could be legit, it could not be. But if you ever need another plumber again, you're not gonna call the one that flaked out on you.
Yeah.
You're not gonna think of that one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I have to
Your,
say.
your reputation kind of, it's like your attendance at work. You wake up one day, oh, I don't feel like going, you call off. And then, the next day you're like, oh, you know what, we don't need you anymore. You're unreliable, you're inconsistent. Whereas you got this other person, although he might not be, as talented or as great or as efficient as you, he's reliable and he's someone we know we can count on when things get tough.
Correct.
All right. So
Yeah.
you mentioned something about your weight cuts. Now, from one Mexican to another, I know we've got probably some of the best food on the planet. I need to know what's one
The
food that,
best.
that yeah, what's one food that you hated giving up or that you always saw when you were cutting weight? You're like, man, I really wish I can eat this, but I just can't.
Man, it's it's so much, so much. So one thing that I really like eating that I didn't, I really enjoyed gorditas and sopes. You know, it's just the thick dough.
Yeah,
It's just the corn, you know. That's it was just good. And the hard thing about that is because you can still have like a taco or two. It's not bad to have one or two tacos. You do need carbs. But the thing about gorditas is that they're fried. You know, you gotta deep fry those, and you cannot have those.
yeah,
You know, you can have a taco or two, like I mentioned. A taco is just corn and meat, right? That's carbs and protein. You can have one or two. That's all right. But you cannot have gorditas. That's deep fried, and then you have all the sour cream and the beans, and then the things that they put in it, it's usually fried as well. So that was one thing that I really missed because it was not even, I couldn't even attempt to eat one. Like I said, other food you can eat in small amounts. You can eat maybe half a tamal or two or one tamal because it's still carbs and it's still protein. But you could not eat gorditas because they're fried.
So now you did mention as well, before you started getting into fighting yourself, you were a heavy training partner for a lot of these guys that were up there in the fight game. So nowadays I see that you're actually teaching yourself, is that kind of something that you thought about doing before you turned to a full-time fighter? Maybe you thought to yourself, well, I'm a training partner. I know the fundamentals. I know a little bit more in depth. Is coaching always been something that you've thought about?
Coaching has always been something that was very present in my career as a martial artist. I mentioned my first instructor, my first Taekwondo instructor. He had this very peculiar system of ranking up. If you needed to rank up, once you were an upper belt, like let's say in Taekwondo, high blue belt or brown belt, you had to have a certain amount of teaching hours for you to qualify to rank up to the next belt. Because he was very adamant about these principles of martial arts. If you can't teach it, you really don't know it, right? You really don't master it. How can you teach something you don't really understand? You can know something, but that doesn't mean you understand it.
Right.
So he would make the upper belts teach. And the second one is it is your duty, and not just in martial arts, but anything that you practice, it is your duty to maintain the inspiration and the skill alive in the world. And if you don't teach it, it dies with you. If you don't teach it, it's right there.
Right.
If you don't teach it, you don't pass it on. You don't really get to really enjoy what you know because you just only see it perform when you perform it. You don't really get to enjoy the beautiful thing that is of knowledge that you have because you're not sharing it. And once again, do you really know it if you haven't actually tried to pass it on? Do you have you really mastered it if you can't really teach it? So from a very young age, this happened as I was a teenager. From a very young age, I've always enjoyed all the fulfillments that come with teaching, and I've always liked and enjoyed and looked forward to teaching. And it was also another reason why I wanted to fight because I want to know that I'm fighting. I'm not going to tell you how to do this and then me have never actually done it myself. This is how you throw a kick. Well, how do you know it works? You're right. How do I know it works? Well, let me go try it. And I have tried it at the highest level, and now I know, okay, I'm confident that I know how to do it, and, and I'll happily teach you how to do it.
Right.
And I'm confident that you will do it right because I've done it right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's,
So yeah, I've always liked it.
it's always good to see that, someone who's been at the game at the top of the level show these up and comers or even this younger kids the fundamentals. Because nowadays there's a lot of people that are saying, oh, I watched the sport for 20 years. Yes, you watched it. Yes, you've seen film. Yes, you might have done a smoker bout once or twice in your life. But if you've never done it consistently, trained consistently, had the proper guidance, had the proper technique or, the fundamentals to be able to explain, like you said, you can do it, you can know it, but do you really understand it? And a lot of people nowadays don't really understand it. They just know enough about it to sound good. They might sound good to your ear, but once you start doing, you're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So yeah, I agree with you saying on that. That's really good that you're taking all that aspect of really actually understanding the sport, understanding how to express it to people, and how to keep that generation of proper mixed martial arts going on to the future. With that, it seems like you're pretty comfortable with being a coach. Is that something that I might be misinterpreting, or you always felt comfortable being able to teach mixed martial arts?
Um, I've always felt very comfortable. I always look forward to do it. Quite a it's quite an experience. It's quite a fulfilling experience to watch children, adults, people who think they don't know it, people who think they can't do it, people who say they're too old or they're too young or they don't know or their kid has ADHD or they have this injury or they can't do it anymore. It's always very fulfilling to get them to a place where they realize that they can do it, that they're able to do it, and not just that, but do it well.
Yeah. So with all that, I do want to know, what's next from you? What can we expect? We're gonna see you teaching full time now. Or you have any plans, get back in the cage, see you fight again? I'm sure plenty of people, myself included. I know my dad's a really huge fan of you. He's followed you since your LFA days. He loves your striking technique. You're just so wild and bizarre. You're a very unpredictable fighter, and he absolutely loves that. But what else can we expect from you in the future?
Well, in the future, right now, I'm very dedicated to being a coach right now. If you know James Vic and I have our co-coaches at this particular gym. I coach at one of the locations. He coaches at the other location. And right now, we're focusing a lot on these upcoming fighters that we have, and of course, our students that compete in tournaments and whatnot. So my main focus right now is to make sure that our students thrive and our schools thrive. That is really my main focus right now. If I was to fight again, it would have to be an opportunity that was financially reasonable for me to do it. Not only would I have to take time off from this project that James and I are working on with the schools, but I also have to take time away from my family and make sure that if I do that, it has to be worth it financially. That's really the main reason right now that I would have as a coach and also as a father and a husband is that comes first now. If I was single and by myself and I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna couch surf and keep fighting and until I can't. But right now in this moment, it's not just me, it's not just me who gets to make that decision, and it's not just me who will suffer the bad parts of me making that decision. So unless it's financially reasonable, I'm not really planning on fighting again. Do I want to? Yes. But I want my family to have the most happy and stable home for them. And if fighting can provide that for them, then I'll do it. But as it looks like right now, that is not the path to accomplishing that goal.
I really respect that. Your family, man. Your family comes first. I agree with that 100%. I'm the same way. I got no family right now besides, just my immediate family. I'm single, but partnered, but it's all right. You gotta take care of you first before you can take care of everybody else. And I don't blame you for that. You're a great family man. It seems like you got your priorities straight, and that's all we can ask for. Just one more quick little segment before we end this interview. As you know, this weekend we got Bilal Muhammad taking on Gabriel Bonfim. You have any predictions or thought for that fight?
Yeah, I was looking at their fights whenever you messaged me about it, and I think I got Balding. And the reason why I have him is because he seems to keep the pressure. He seems to keep the pressure regardless of what round it is.
Yeah,
And some people just can't handle that. Whether you're a grappler or a striker, just some people just can't handle that. And I feel that um, with Muhammad, that's the name, right? The other guy.
yeah,
He's a good rounded fighter, but it seems that people kind of like fear his engagement a little too much, so they don't pressure him as much. And then he's able to get time to find what he wants to insert and ends up, winning the round that way. But I feel like Baldwin will stay on top of him to the point where he's like, "Oh, I don't have time to do this, but I have to do it quick." And then that's when mistakes happen.
yeah. Unfortunately, I disagree with you on that one. I got Bilal Muhammad taking the win. Yeah,
Yeah,
he does tend to keep off the gas a little bit here and there, but I don't know. I don't feel like Bonfim's going to have an answer for his grappling, and I think that's going to be one of his lay and pray kind of fights. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get the win, right?
you do. The grappling.
Yeah.
The grappling's a big one.
All right, my man. Well, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy lifestyle. You're a family man. Thank you for the time. Thank you for being willing to come onto the channel with us. It'd be great to have you again sometime. And if you know anybody that's also interested in doing some sort of interview, by all means, share my information out there. We'll be happy to have them on the page.
You got it. Thank you for having me.
And not a problem, man. Anytime. All right, fight fans. That's all we got today. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, we'll catch y'all for another Cage Conversation.